Mr. Agnew.
Thank you, Chairman, and I apologise for my late arrival. I was unavoidably detained. I'd just like to speak about glyphosate to begin with. This is a vitally important herbicide to agriculture and to forestry and to general council activities. I mean, what we would call district councils, county councils. It is a very important material. And if you're going to consider banning it under two different headings, I think we ought to look at what else you might have to ban. So the two headings would be toxicity and having an effect on cancer, carcinogenic. Well, what is a lot more toxic than glyphosate? Well, caffeine that we drink is far more toxic than glyphosate. Alcohol that a lot of us drink is far more toxic than glyphosate. But critically, Martin, rotenone, a pesticide used by organic farmers, is far more toxic than glyphosate. So if you're going to knock glyphosate out on the criteria of toxicity, we're going to be a pretty miserable bunch of people who can't drink coffee, who can't drink alcohol, and won't be able to grow organic crops properly. Now, the other criterion that it's being assessed on is this business of carcinogenic, and the World Health Organization has said it is probably carcinogenic. And I think it's interesting to see what else falls into that category. One of those things is working night shifts is apparently a carcinogenic activity on a par with glyphosate. Another is cutting human hair. And an interesting one is the national drink of Argentina is called mate or mate. Yeah, I don't bother barbers. So you've got to be very careful here. There is a determination to say glyphosate is wicked, evil and cruel and all the rest of it. But I can remember when it came in the mid-70s. I can remember the difference it made. And I can remember what we had to do in agriculture when we didn't have it. And we had to burn an awful lot of fuel. I'd just now like to say a little bit on biopesticides. Do you know that Africa is ahead of us on this? Sorry, you're pointing at me. What's the problem? He's pointing at somebody else. Okay. I think that the EU ought to be deregulating biopesticides so we can actually catch up with Africa. I can't think Africa's ahead of us on many things, but it is on that. GM cultivation, let the member states decide. The EU has kicked this football around for goodness knows how many years. It really should be up to the member states. Those countries that do it appear to be quite happy with it. I know that Mr. Heatmer mentioned a protein source, and of course the problem with the abattoir waste is, yes, it's a protein source, but the people who retail the meat in the supermarkets would prefer, they know that their consumers would rather that the protein element wasn't that. This is the trouble. So although you can say you can do it, I wonder how many will do it, but it's talking about animal protein source. Insects actually fall outside the slaughterhouse regulations, and insects are a very good source of protein, so that's perhaps something that could be considered. Finally, Martin, I know I usually have a go at you, but I do support you on this live animal transport. It is disgusting what goes on, and I think the EU should be ashamed of itself for some of the activities that take place. Thank you very much.
Of course, some mentioned questions related to glyphosate. I would like to say that, yes, Mr. Häusling raised two bodies, EFSA and AGRI. But I would like to say that at WHO level, they have joint pesticide monitoring committee, another body, which has also assessed the situation with glyphosate, and their opinion was different related to AGRI. Their opinion was close to EFSA. Also, as you see, 7 different international bodies have different approaches. And AGRI present their view that glyphosate probably is cancerogenic, but we know very well that many assessing bodies presented different views, and not only under influence of industry, as it is very popular to argue about interest. But speaking about sensitivity and such today's situation and difficulties, I would like to say that I am ready to evaluate the situation in how to change our assessment system being more transparent and disclosing such studies which are presented from industry side, because we need in trust. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to manage at European Union level situation following strictly scientific opinion. And of course, we are just in this time we debating issues with member states. We know that at standing committee it was very different view of different member states, and we are not ready to go forward without member states' opinion. Shared responsibility must be very clear signal that we need a common, understandable position for all 28 member states. We need in broad coalition on such decision related to glyphosate. Also, as we all know very well, that EFSA presented view that some co-formulants are very dangerous, and for example, I am ready to propose the ban of POA toluamine and the co-formulants. Of course, we are ready to see different flexibilities related to biodiversity issues and possibilities to reduce time of prolongation, and of course to start with bio-monitoring and different approaches. But first of all, we must understand that we need also member states' common position, not to leave European Commission alone. It's not the way. We must understand that in this case we must see, of course, European Parliament resolution on glyphosate, I would like to mention the same. And, but I would like to say that we must follow strict scientific approach. And it was mentioned animal protein issues. Yes, Joint Research Center is looking at detection methods, and we will analyze its report and look at possible decisions. Speaking about animal welfare generally, our position, and when you mentioned about export of our animals to third countries and problems related to different animal welfare standards, but animal welfare standards are agreed on Animal World Health Organization level, and it is also on WTO level enshrined. And we are ready to communicate with third countries, speaking about beef issues related to Brazil. We have follow very much on animal welfare standard. As you know, we are ready to send our audits to third countries to see how they follow agreeable animal welfare standards. And always, when we're debating our issues with third countries, we also always raising questions about animal welfare standards. But of course, it's not in our hands to ban export to third countries as here was proposed, because it will be very difficult to use such ban in this situation.